welcome to Labor Lens. I am Sharon Ijason. On this week's edition of the program, we'll be focusing on the quest for a new national minimum wage. We also have new stories for you. We will be right back.
This is a significant leap towards the implementation of a new minimum wage. The 2019 Minimum Wage Act empowers this tripartite committee to engage in open and constructive dialogue to arrive at a fair and sustainable minimum wage. The federal government now has to work within a timeline to ensure recommendations made by the committee are considered.
We have identified the need for the review of the national minimum wage and to consider a minimum wage level that can alleviate the sufferings of the people. It gladdens my heart that the recommendation is being acted upon today, and we can all acknowledge that this is in line with our democratic process and adherence to the rule of law.
This process is not merely about numbers. It is about recognizing the dignity of work, ensuring that all Nigerians have the opportunity to earn a living wage.
Intensive consultations with broad spectrum of stakeholders to be able to arrive at a new national minimum wage that is fair, practical, implementable, and sustainable for the good of our people and our country.
Vice President Kashim Shettima called for collective bargaining in good faith, emphasizing contract adherence and encouraging consultations outside the committee. But for members of the committee, this review must reflect current economic realities caused by the effect of fuel subsidy removal and rising inflation.
Yes, we are looking for alternative ways of funding, and we are sure that with the backward integration in the economy, a lot of us will be able to stand tall in this challenge.
We've had a lot of minimum wage negotiations over the years, but this one will stand out. It will stand out because we have never seen a time like this in Nigeria. So this is a period where people are passing through pain, people are passing, in fact, the purchasing power of an average Nigerian workers, and indeed, the entire Nigerian masses has been eroded.
For the government and the negotiators, if the workers today are expectant, they want a robust minimum wage, I believe there won't be any rigidity coming from the angle of the government. So I'm in line with what my TVC president said. No time has been given, and let's wait.
As the clock ticks towards the end of the 2019 minimum wage of 30,000 naira per month, the hope for better welfare is now dangled in the face of Nigerian workers. Hopefully, it is rooted in social justice and equity.
Like we promised the Vice President, that we are going to have a wide spectrum of consultations with recommendations to be made that at the end of it will be acceptable, fair, implementable, and sustainable. I don't want to give you a specific date, but like the Vice President directed, that it's going to be soon.
The National Assembly is warming up for another round of alterations to the 1999 Constitution. NULGE has been at the forefront of autonomy for local government administration and has, in collaboration with organized labor, embarked on advocacy visits to the national and state parliaments. In the last constitution review exercise, despite endorsement by the National Assembly, its effort failed to yield results as the bills did not get the needed support of 2/3 of the 36 states' houses of assembly. The union uses the occasion of its National Executive Council meeting to address some important national issues as they affect its members and Nigeria. NULGE hopes the bid for local government autonomy will scale through this time.
NULGE is resolute because we realize Nigerians deserve a functional local government system. We therefore urge the National Assembly to reintroduce the passage of the bill and call on Mr. President to show political will and throw his political support.
Other issues of concern to the union, including security, establishment of community police in all local government areas, and the state of the economy.
We emphasize the necessity for collaboration among federal, state, and local government authorities, as well as active involvement of traditional/community leaders and religious heads in developing a comprehensive strategy to combat insecurity in Nigeria.
It makes a case for a new minimum wage and a review of pensions.
We therefore call on federal government to prioritize establishing CNG conversion centers, minimum of 3 per state in all the states across the federation, whereby motorists can go to convert their PMS consuming vehicle to a CNG compliant vehicle.
The union appeals to the government to attend to its areas of concern in order that the local government system will have a pride of place in the nation's development.
Bola Ahmed Tinubu has tremendous love and respect for the Nigerian worker. And that is why he approved generously for the inauguration of the tripartite committee, and charged them to move very fast. He has provided logistics. Want us to move forward. We don't have any figure in mind. We want a very, very realistic approach based on certain conventions, based on the reality of the Nigerian economy, based also on what you have in our neighboring countries throughout Africa. Nigerian welcome. Everyone believes deserves a rise in his pay package. Honestly, we want a situation where Nigerian workers are sufficiently motivated to work for the common good, for the Nigerian people. Once they are sufficiently motivated, they will do very well because they're gifted, because they're productive, because they're creative, they're full of initiative, a human resource base. I want to believe and strongly too that is second to none in Africa.
Thank you very much, sir.
That is why we're here today.
Like, nobody's going to sleep on this job because everything we're going to do, we must finish by before 1st of April. So there's no delay because it's something that is backed by the law and we must obey the law of the land. And so that's what they are simply saying, that we have just 2 months to do this work. And so that's what it is. And of course we're hopeful that we are going to speed up the process because all of us knows what the issues are. Nobody's new in this. We've been talking about since last year. So I'm sure that we're going to deliver based on speed and the expectation of Nigerians.
Tripartite committee, which means that the private sector, the government and labor should have a united position in order to improve the life of the average Nigerian, and that's exactly what we are looking forward to. So on this call, we are going to have the same mandate and we are going to enforce the same standard. So the minimum wage is going to be binding on all the parties that are involved. And by the way, I will need to assure you that even the private sector have always been ahead in terms of having a much, much higher minimum wage. So it is for us to support a process that allows some measure of improvement in what we have paid to those who work to make the...
Thank God for this initiative that government is taking at this particular place, but I'm still being worried. We may remember some time long ago, there was an NULGE award. And that was the first time the salary of the workers were increased. And immediately after the increasement, the commodity in the market run up to meet. So while we are talking about minimum wage, I think the government on their own side has to think on how to bring down the price of commodities in the market. If a worker is paying 1 million naira as a minimum wage and the bag of rice is 900,000, the 1 million naira still has no meaning. So what I think, while we are thinking of minimum wage to hike the price, the salary of the workers, the government on their own side has to think how that money will have value. Having value is, if a bag of rice that was 8,000 yesterday is now 50,000, and you increase the salary of the workers and the price of rice will be 200 or 200,000, the salary you increase has no value. So I think the government is going down in the right direction. Also, while we increase the salary of the workers, let the government work on the price of commodities to come down. If the dollar will step down now, the price of commodity will step down. My mind is going that way.
On the profile interview segment this week, I'll be speaking with the national president of ASBIFI. He brings us up to speed on several challenges in the financial sector, while also emphasizing on some of the steps that should be taken towards the fight or achievement of a new national minimum wage. It's good to have you on the program.
Thank you very much.
It's a happy new year.
Yes.
Even though we're already in a new month, but it's still a happy new year for me to you.
Yes. Good to see you again.
Thank you. Looking at the peculiarity of your union, how would you respond to the issue of inflation, which has quadrupled in the last few months? What do you think needs to be done differently?
Well, right now, I think the first thing that will tie inflation to today is the value of the naira, because you'll find out that every day the naira keeps depreciating, and we've even gone beyond weekly price movements or daily price movements to hourly price movements. I've seen people who have gotten prices in the morning, and by afternoon, those prices have changed. So right now, focus should be on how the naira can be stabilized. And in stabilizing the naira itself, it means that we have to look at those things that are eating into our foreign exchange reserves outside the CBN trying to meet up with its obligations across board, across the various industries. We need to reduce our dependence on importation. We've said this several times. And continue to look inward at local things and see how we can rely more on our local products outside the imported things. And then also try and curb expenses, local expenses to start with, and then expenses that eat deep into our foreign reserves.
Okay, moving forward, talking about the welfare of workers in the country, we are very much aware of an incident that happened about a month ago where a banker actually committed suicide and wrote a letter and expressed how depressed she was. How did your union respond to this? And what would be your advice to employers of labor going forward towards ensuring that decent work is promoted in the workplace?
Yeah, that was quite a sad incident. It clearly showed that a lot has to be done in terms of mental health. Now, as a union, I'll even go beyond how we reacted to it. We, as ASBIFI, have a record as the only union today that commemorates the World Day for Decent Work. And it's because of things like this where we're able to come together to share ideas, to rub minds together on the things that affect mental health that would lead to things like suicide, like the case of what happened here. And indeed, it formed part of the Unique Global Conference that took place in August in Philadelphia, where we made presentations on decent work. Within the industry, there's a lot of pressure in terms of delivering value at the workplace. But every organization owes its staff the responsibility to provide support, because sometimes the mental health may not be totally related to the workplace environment, but to things that the person is facing personally in other areas. But when you join that together with work-related activities, then it escalates. And organizations have that responsibility to ensure that they're able to support their staff through counseling, through observation, because sometimes people hide these things within themselves. But an organization that observes the body language of its staff will have noticed that there is a problem coming up which needs to be nipped in the bud. And once they're able to do that, once they're able to respect the right of workers in terms of the decency of the environment they work in, and that when we say that, we're talking in terms of work hours, the right of the worker to disconnect, the relationship between staff and members and their supervisors, because sometimes it could just be sometimes not physical harassment, but mental harassment. You know, the way we talk, the way we react, and the way we relate to our members. Those are the things that need to be caught and quickly addressed. And if we have that kind of thing, then such incidents like the sad one that happened will be minimized, if not completely eliminated.
During the week, the federal government of Nigeria inaugurated a committee to address the issue of setting up a figure that would be the new national minimum wage. How would you react to this committee or to this development? And is Asbifi also part of this committee, owing to the fact that it's a financial institution and also has lots of role that they can play in this development?
Yes. Well, this was something that we saw coming based on the various discussions that had started since last year. When the issue of minimum wage came up, there had been quite a number of industrial actions by the labor unions in Nigeria. So the setting up of the committee was actually a welcome development, and the inauguration, like you said. However, to answer one of your questions, no, Asbifi is not part of the committee. Well, one would have expected that the financial sector on the labor side would have been represented to be able to add value in the discussion, in the negotiation itself. But another thing that we may have observed is that since this negotiation started, a lot of it has been skewed towards the public sector more than the private sector. So basically, you will find out that it is what is negotiated for the public sector is what the private sector now picks up and works. And I think we need to start correcting those things and look at it across board. Because while the government is able to set figures and limits based on their budget, organizations have to work based on their own income, on their own profitability, to be able to fix these things as well. And you need to understand that we all patronize the same market, we all go in the same public transport, we all live in the same kind of houses. So there is no disparity in any form. And at the end of the day, everybody is affected by it. For us, the advice we can give, even though we are not there, is that in coming to the minimum wage, the government has to ensure that outside a figure being put in place, the wage is sustainable until the next negotiation, not a situation where 6 months down the line, it's eroded. And in being able to establish, in being able to do that as a government, it goes beyond money. It goes beyond money. It includes other things, other amenities or facilities that are provided for the general public to ensure that they are able to be sustained with what they earn. And then going into the public sector as well, the government needs to look at how they are taxing and dealing with those organizations, because whatever it is that happens still comes back to the worker who is getting the wage. So look at the manufacturing industry, for example. If they do not have the kind of support that they require to be able to operate, it simply means that their prices will go up, especially with the minimum, because they also have to pay their workers. And if that goes up, it erodes into the wage that is being given, that is being negotiated. If our currency is not stable, it has its own impact as well, because one of the fallouts of the agitation for the minimum wage was the removal of subsidies, was the devaluation of the naira that had reduced drastically the value of the 30,000 naira minimum wage that we currently operate right now. So if all these things are not put in place, amongst other things, it simply means that it's going to be an exercise in futility, which we need to avoid now, we need to avoid that to prevent any further agitations before the year runs out.
As an experienced financial person, what do you think needs to be done to strengthen the naira?
Well, to start with, we need to reduce our dependence on the dollar. The dollar being, when I say the dollar, I'm just using the dollar as the recognized means of foreign exchange across board. We need to really, really reduce our dependence. We're still an import-dependent nation. If you look at the balance of trade, there's more going out than what is coming in right now. So we need to look at those things that are eating deep into our foreign exchange, our foreign reserves, and see how we can build up our reserves. And then, of course, we know we are faced with the government trying to clear up its obligations. I read in the news recently that they had actually cleared up a percentage. The CBN came out with a statement that a percentage of obligations had been met. But it's a very, very small percentage. I think it was less than 10%. So we'll still have over 90% to go. Now, while those are being cleared, we should avoid building up more of those things. And it starts from the top down to the bottom. What are those things that we travel out of the country for? What are those things that we keep importing that we can avoid? Clearly. Tourism, goods and services that can be provided locally. Those things need to be medicals. Those things need to be curbed. But while you are curbing, you must also ensure, and when I say you, I mean, well, Nigerians generally, not just the government, everybody has to ensure that you get the minimum quality that is required for you to stay back. Because sometimes you will find out that some of these things may be justified. But if we provide the kind of quality that is required, then why not? We stay behind and we handle all those things. And then beyond that, we also need to curb our spendings. Spending at the government level and spending at individual level. What are the things that are actually necessary for us to spend money on? What are the things that we can actually do away with or do without? And once we're able to get all those things right, remove exorbitant things, ostentatious living and all those things, then we'll begin to see our currency stabilizing. So it's not just about going to the street wanting to buy dollar or wanting to sell dollar, no. It's the entirety of the way we operate in the country.
So how is ASBIFI responding to the banking and to the recapitalization that is happening in the banking sector generally? And how would this affect your members?
Yeah, well, the recapitalization is clearly inevitable. When we look at it, that I think the last recapitalization was about 2005, when the 25 billion naira minimum capital was put in place. Now, if you look at that in dollar terms, you will find out that that value is heavily eroded. confidence needs to be put in the financial sector, just like the CBN governor noted. But we issued a statement and we communicated that to the CBN as well, that while we are not opposed to the recapitalization should only happen at a time when the nation is stabilized financially. Because yet again, we come back to the issue of the value of the Naira. It keeps devaluing every day. So if you fix a value today as the recapitalization and you have not controlled the value of the Naira, it simply means that in the shortest period of time, that capitalization that took place would have probably come down to almost nothing again, just as it is right now. So we expect that that will happen first. So far, the CBN has not made any announcement yet. We're waiting, but we expect that they're also thinking the way we are thinking as well. And I'm also aware that a lot of banks in the financial sector are currently preparing to start beefing up, even without a figure, at least to get them closer to what is expected of them, because we see a lot of announcements and we're seeing a lot of activity on the stock market as well in preparation for that as well. For us as a union, we know that recapitalization will probably lead to mergers and acquisitions, and we've also made that note out. We've made that call that the unions need to be taken along, carried along in the entire process. They need to be recognized, and the rights of our members need to be protected as well, in such a way that recapitalization will not lead to job losses. Because if we have mergers and acquisitions, it means you are going to have duplication of roles. But we also expect that in that kind of situation, businesses will expand. So what we expect is that our members will be prepared for new roles, for new departments, for new positions. And for us as a union, we continue to encourage our members to develop themselves in preparation for all these things.
Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And that's all we can take on today's edition of the program. Join us next week for a fresh edition of the show. I am Sharon Ijason. Thanks for watching, and remember that labor creates wealth.